Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Amir Karam, board certified facial plastic surgeon, founder and creator of Karam MD Skin. I specialize in facial rejuvenation, which basically means I help people look as young as they feel. And today we're going to talk about a very timely and interesting topic, and that is Kristen Davis and all the press she's been getting because she basically came out and talked a lot about her personal experiences with non-surgical treatments and how that has ultimately left her feeling disappointed and, in her own words, tearful and very stressful. And I want to walk you through some of this and also at the end of it kind of give you my ideas of how this can be avoided and how, in your case, you should manage the inevitable facial aging process. And hopefully once we do that, you will be able to avoid some of the mistakes that Kristen has made and ultimately find yourself in a more direct way, direct path towards achieving what we all ultimately want, which is to look as young as we feel. All right, so without further ado, let's break it down. So Kristen Davis is 58 years old. She is a Hollywood phenom, one of the stars in Sex and the City, one of the most iconic and beautiful faces in Hollywood. And during her days while Sex and the City was being filmed, really just a symbol of beauty, girlish, youth, etc. Well, like anyone else, she's going through the aging process. And as a result of that, naturally, like so many of us, want to defy it, want to fight it. And the reasons why we want to defy it and fight it, and everyone's got their own, sort of sub-reasons, but the ultimate reason, the internal reason comes down to we feel really young on the inside, yet our faces start to age and they don't resemble the way we expect to look when we get a photo of us taken or a reflection in the mirror, etc. So that leads us down this sort of path. Now, she's got other reasons, she wants to continue making movies and films and wants to look the same as she did when everyone recognized her in that type of light. So there's this kind of pressure to be as young and youthful as possible. On the other hand, there's also the fundamental reality of ageism. People simply don't look at young people and old people the same way. There's a preference given to the younger face. And as a result, there's this kind of like brewing internal pressure, external pressures to fundamentally work on ways to ward off some of these aging changes. Now, what Kristen has done is what many people do, and that is avoid wanting to alter your appearance. So as a result of that, you think, okay, I'm gonna take the more conservative approach. I'm gonna go down the road of doing fillers. I'm gonna go down the road of using Botox. I'm gonna do these type of things because somehow there's less likelihood of hurting myself, changing my appearance, getting that pulled, windswept, tight, unfamiliar look that happens as a result of facelift surgery, right? I mean, it makes sense. So many people feel that way. Now, what I think a lot of people don't understand is that the use of treatments like fillers, etc., slowly over time ends up leading to the same end result as what I'm going to call bad surgery. Because good surgery, like some of the stuff that you see on my channel and my before and afters and my website, etc., you can't tell the person's had any work done. They look normal, they look natural. And procedures like the vertical restore combined with the fat transfer, I mean, it's like taking a magic eraser and the person suddenly looks so young, but they don't give up their identity, they don't give up their spirit, they don't give up who they are as a result of it. But that's good surgery. Now there's good surgery and then there's bad surgery, right? But one fundamental issue is with fillers, the way they're used, the way they're talked about. All of us are, as practitioners have gone through this, myself included. I mean, I kind of bought into the Kool-Aid, as well, and eventually found myself pulling out because I started to see the changes that were happening. And that is this: when the face loses volume, it loses volume in very specific areas. It loses a little bit in the temple, it loses a little bit under the eyes, it loses a little bit above the eyes, it loses a little bit down here in the prejowl sulcus, the lips start to shrink a little bit. Where it doesn't lose volume is areas like the cheeks, right? It doesn't lose volume along the mandible. And what happens is you go to a place where they do fillers, which is almost everywhere, right? And the first place they want to put the filler is in the cheeks and along the mandible, along the jawline. Why is that? Well, because there's hollows that form under here, there's kind of flatness in this region, there's jowling that forms, the looseness along the jawline, etc. And what the strategy is, if you put a bunch of filler here and here, you're gonna kind of elevate the face in this kind of upward triangular shape, and as a result, restore the face back to its youthful look, which is like a heart, right? A young face looks like a heart. It's fuller up top, more narrow below. But here is the caveat. This is where the whole logic breaks down. When you're aging, it's not just volume loss. That's just one part of it. The other parallel part of it is laxity. Now, laxity is happening at the fascia level. It usually starts happening in the late 40s, early 50s, and the fascia starts to unwind. And when that happens, the face starts to slide. And when that slides, you start to see sagging in the corners of the eyebrow, like you can see in Kristen's case as she's gotten older. You see heaviness and, sort of thickening of the nasolabial folds, jowling, neck banding, all this is laxity. So what becomes a strategy is when that happens, you're filling more into this area to kind of take care of that problem. However, what ends up happening is you're putting volume where volume doesn't belong. You're trying to put a Band-Aid over an area that isn't cut. It's truly not cut. It's just sagging. So by adding volume, you're now putting volume in a place where you wouldn't have put it when you were 20 or 30, which is the face you want to get back to. So why are you putting it at 50? Think about that for a second. So then what ends up happening, and this is the sort of change, you start doing this stuff in your early 40s, let's just say. Every 6 to 9 months, a year, you go in, you get a little bit of filler here and there. You think you're being conservative. Once every 9 months, once every year, putting a little bit here, putting a little bit there, da-da-da. Now your face starts to look pretty good. You're happy with it. But then the fillers start to dissipate a little bit and your aging continues. So the sagging continues to happen. So year after year, sagging is getting worse. The amount of filler you're putting in is building on each other. Why? Because fillers don't go away. Fundamentally do not go away. When fillers are put into a face, there's a portion of them that are there forever, either in the way of a filler or transitioned into scar tissue. Okay, so this is not in my opinion. This is lots of studies, MRI studies, etc. Years after fillers have been put, you can still see it in the tissues. And surgically, I see it all the time as scar tissue, right? It's like fibrosis and inflammation because your body's trying to get rid of the filler, and as a result, it leads to this kind of like transformation. So then, face is continuously sliding, you're adding more volume into areas where the volume doesn't belong, so then what ends up happening? And you can see this in Kristen's case. You can see in this photograph, she's really full in the mid-face, and as a result of aging has gotten fuller down below. Now her whole face just looks really full. And when you see these photographs of her, the ones that she's describing as making her tearful and the ones that friends had started to kind of like point out to her, hey, Kristen, you're starting to change, and thank God for good friends. I think good friends will tell you. I've been in those situations where it's kind of like you see somebody moving in that, they're a friend of yours and they're moving into this kind of direction. I see this a lot with I don't want to say what specialty, let's just say they start heading in that direction and you feel compelled to say something, but you don't want to embarrass them. So it's kind of a fine line. But I think if you're close enough and you're a good friend, you're going to say something because you're saving them. And ultimately what ends up happening is years go by, a photo is taken, and they're like, whoa, who is that person? That just doesn't vibe and jive with me at all anymore. That's where the stress starts to set in, because you might say to yourself, hey, I'm just going to sit back and let it all melt away. I'm not going to do anything for the next year or two. Guess what? It doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. So what are you going to do? Well, some of it you could remove with enzyme, but that leaves you lumpy and bumpy. When you put enzymes into areas like the cheeks and stuff, it never looks right. I mean, it's very hard to remove filler throughout the face with enzymes like hyaluronidase and things like that. So some of it you're just fundamentally going to have to live with. You're gonna have to live with it. And that's the sad reality of the whole thing, is even if you have surgery, that volume is sticking there and it's making your face look fuller than it was when you were younger. So when I see patients that have very variable amounts of filler put in, I have a different conversation. It's like, hey, you're not gonna go back to what you look like when you were 30, because you just don't fundamentally look like you did when you were 30, because you've kind of ruined things because of the fillers. Not in a like, I'm blaming you kind of a way. I mean, like I said, we all kind of bought into this notion, but let's not be fooled by it anymore. Let's be aware that that reality isn't reality anymore, and that it can cause these issues down the road. And we all know people who have this condition and have kind of gone down this road. So at the end of the day, if you're there depending on how far you are down that road. If you're there and not, like in Kristen's case, I mean, if she gets a nice, let's just say a vertical restore and everything goes back up into position, she's gonna look a lot more youthful and still look very natural. She'll be a little bit fuller than she was in those pictures of her when she was younger. I mean, that's not gonna change, unfortunately, but it'll still look a lot more youthful. But here's the thing, and this is the take-home message that I want you all to understand. That if you're in the process of managing the aging changes, and this is why I spend the time making these videos and this time I put on my social channels like Instagram, etc., because I want you guys to kind of benefit from the years of experience and make good decisions for yourself. So here's what it comes down to. If you're in your 30s and early 40s, a little bit of filler in the areas that I mentioned is okay. Don't put it in your cheeks. Wait till the point where your face is sagging or starting to sag, and step in and do surgery. Whether you do a vertical restore with me or you have a procedure done with somebody else, at the end of the day, pick your surgeon carefully, obviously, because you want to look natural and normal, because that sucks too, to look different and weird. No one wants that. Pick your surgeon carefully. You found a good surgeon. Lift the stuff. Put it back up into position. Get it where it needs to be. Not only financially will you save ultimately more money in the long run than doing these little things over and over again, year after year after year after year, which, trust me, I mean, I see what patients pay for these things. It doesn't take that long to end up paying for what a facelift would cost. Again, facelifts, a lot of different surgeons charge different amounts. Find one that you absolutely love, that you know does good work, and if they fit within your budget, great. If not, save up. Just don't jump into it with somebody who you can afford but doesn't necessarily give you the result you're looking for, because then you'll be disappointed and have to do a revision that way. But don't think for a minute that you're going to buy more time and prevent yourself from ever needing one by putting in filler. You won't. You'll just start to create the changes that we're talking about here. So fundamentally, the most efficient, most direct, most natural looking way is use a tool that lifts your fascia, which is a surgical approach, and then use a little bit of volume to replace the little bit of volume that you've lost. We use fat transfer as part of our combination, so it's vertical restore fat transfer, but if some surgeons don't do fat transfer, use a little filler for the temples, use a little bit of fillers under the eyes, a little bit, not a lot. You'll end up way more natural looking. It's better to be underdone than ever to look overdone. And even though less is not necessarily more, but at least it's less, and more sucks. More really makes people look weird. So less is okay. Less is normal. Less is natural. There's nothing wrong with being a little bit depleted. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of laxity. But if you're overly tight and overly filled, you've got bigger problems, down the road, because the minute you walk into a restaurant or a party or something like that, people know within a split second that you've gone down a bad road with your plastic surgery procedures. And that is not the label you want when you're interacting socially, right? So ultimately, focus on those aspects, choose your providers carefully, listen to stuff like this to help guide you along the way, and ultimately you will come out of this thing a winner. And hopefully, if you do the things right and manage this whole thing right, not only will you look natural, but you look as young as you feel, which is ultimately, I know, what you all want, because it's in us, it's innate in us to want that. And we're just living a lot longer than we are intended to, so we're living with the consequences of facial aging while still feeling very youthful, especially if we're taking good care of ourselves. Another thing that I want to really point out in Kristen Davis's case is she's done an amazing job of taking care of her skin. Despite being in her late 50s, she really has that supple, beautiful, thick, even-toned skin that truly belongs to somebody in their 20s and 30s. Her skin quality hasn't changed a lot. That tells me that she's been really good with sun protection, and she's been really good with the use of active skincare ingredients. Unless she's just got some kind of like superpowered genetics, which we rarely see. It usually comes down to those two things. And really, at the end of the day, if you apply those principles, skin care, which is the combination of sun protection and actives, over time, trust me when I say this, your skin will only get younger and younger with age, as opposed to aging like normal age skin looks like, which is crepey, thin, discolored, wrinkled, all that kind of stuff that none of us want to see. I hope that makes sense. And at the end of the day, put all this into practice. All right, folks, I hope this provides some insight and we've learned some lessons. Honestly, so grateful and proud of Kristen to share her story. So many in Hollywood do not do that. Really, really awesome to have the opportunity to kind of like learn from her and share her mistakes so that people can make good decisions. Folks, if you haven't already, hit subscribe, follow me for more content like this. We talk a lot about all things facial rejuvenation and skin rejuvenation in our Skin School series, which is super popular. And share this with some friends, get the word out, let more people benefit from this. If you enjoyed it, hit like. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I always do my best to answer as many of them as I can. And follow along, if you like stuff like this and you like good education, follow along with the Karam MD Journal. It's our newsletter that I put out. It comes to your email. Lots of good skin knowledge, good facial rejuvenation knowledge, and again, just cutting through the nonsense and getting right to the stuff that empowers you to make good decisions. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed this topic, and until next time, Dr. Amir Karam.